The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
On behalf of RBCS, RBCS Australia, RBCS New Zealand, and Software TestWorks, we welcome everyone today to this webinar on test organization options. I am Rex Black, President of RBCS, a worldwide testing and quality assurance firm serving clients ranging from small startups to Fortune 20 global enterprises. Since 1994, RBCS has been both a pioneer and leader in quality hardware and software testing. RBCS has offices in the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Sri Lanka with partners around the world. RBCS delivers insight and confidence to our clients, helping them get quality software and hardware products to market on time and with a measurable return on investment. RBCS has a team of international consultants that deliver customized training, consulting, and outsourcing services for companies that are looking to improve their test and quality assurance practices. RBCS has helped hundreds of companies reduce development and support costs while assuring the best quality products are delivered to customers. I'm the author of Pragmatic Software Testing, Advanced Software Testing Volumes 1 and 2, Foundations of Software Testing, Critical Testing Processes, and Managing the Testing Process. I have a degree in Computer Science and Engineering from UCLA. I'm also past president of the International Software Testing Qualifications Board and the American Software Testing Qualifications Board. Before we start the presentation, a couple housekeeping notes. If you have questions during the course of the webinar, please feel free to submit them at any time in the presentation via the webinar interface. There's no need to ask for presentation copies. The presentation is posted on the web at www.rbcs-us.com on the basic library page in the resources section. If you are having problems with either the audio or visual components of this webinar, please contact GoToWebinar support. If for whatever reason you cannot get to the webinar online, or if you're dealing with an unreliable connection, please download the slides, which, as I said, are on the basic library page, the resources section, www.rbcs-us.com, and use the telephone to connect. Today, I'm happy to be presenting this webinar live in San Francisco from an unnamed client's offices. This is a semi-undisclosed location. No, Dick Cheney is not here with me. The client prefers to remain nameless, but like all RBCS clients, is a company that cares about testing and quality. Right, guys? Right, good. The local testing and quality staff are attending today's session, as you can tell. You might hear them making comments or asking questions in the background, and as a host, they get the first crack at the questions section at the end of this session. So you'll hear them asking questions at that point. Okay, so today's presentation is about how to organize your test team. Now the obvious answer is get a bunch of really smart people together, ideally with testing experience, and start testing. But a lot of factors can influence whether that obvious, simple answer will work. So let's take a look at them, because the way you handle these factors can determine whether your test team and its results are either dull or brilliant. All right. There we go. So, some things to look at, challenges and options related to the organization of your test team. Lifecycle options, how they affect the test team, skills that are needed in your team, utilization of people outside of the immediate test team. How can we do that? Should the test teams be specialized or generalized? What are the pros and cons of each? What is the concept of a testing center of excellence, and is that something that can be useful? And how can outsource resources be used to try to augment the testing? Okay, so let's start with the life cycles and how those would affect the organization. So if you're following a V model or a sequential life cycle where you specify all the requirements, you then design a system that would meet those requirements, you then implement that system, and then go through successive levels of testing, then there are certain organizational issues that arise out of that. Now, theoretically, a lot of these issues really shouldn't happen, but they are commonly observed in the way that these sequential life cycles are implemented. So, prime example of that, late engagement of the test team. In an ideal case, the test team would be involved from the first day of the project, right? As the requirements are being specified, those will be fed to somebody on the test team, or maybe a couple somebodies on the test team to participate in the review of those, to do risk analysis of those, to start to develop test cases with those. But many times what we see with our clients is the test team is not engaged up front, but rather gets engaged later, in some cases just days before the test execution is going to start, which then means that planning is not optimal. Bug prevention activities that could be carried out, for example, with reviews and early test design don't occur. Tests are not necessarily run in a proper sequence because you don't have a chance to do good risk analysis before you start, and so forth. So this is one of the things that you want to try to overcome in a sequential model, is to make sure that you've got that early engagement. In addition, not only does there need to be early engagement of the test team, but we have to confront another challenge, which is the possibility of inadequate early QA and test. So it's not enough to just get the testers involved and have the testers off creating test cases. They actually have to be doing things like reviewing requirements and design specifications and so forth. And the development team has to take seriously their own responsibilities related to quality, particularly things like code reviews, static analysis, and unit testing. And if those things happen, then that will enable timely completion of the sequential life cycle. In other words, you get into system test and things work. But unfortunately, what sometimes happens is because those early QA and test activities are not properly carried out, you get into system test and things don't work. And then the system testing takes much longer than it otherwise would. Another thing that tends to happen with sequential life cycles that affects the organization is schedule slips. Schedule slips occur earlier in the project. The requirements aren't done on the date they were supposed to be done, so that ends up delaying the start of design, and then the design gets pushed out, and coding gets pushed out, et cetera, right? All of the internal dates slip, but of course, the externally visible date, delivery into production, that doesn't slip, right? So you have basically schedule pressure building up throughout the project that cannot be relieved, and in many cases the attempt to solve that is by throwing a lot of long hours into the work at the very end, which of course has some significant morale issues for the test team. It creates turnover issues for the test managers because you start to have people leave, in some cases in the middle of projects, which then makes a bad situation worse because if you're down headcount in the middle of a crunch period, you're of course even more crunched, right? So we really need to confront that challenge and avoid that, and that's, again, going back to the earlier 2 points I made, early involvement of the test team and a proactive approach in terms of early QA and testing to try to avoid a situation that will make schedule crunch even worse, which is an unanticipatedly high number of bugs discovered during the system testing. And then that brings me to the fourth point, the fourth challenge that we see, which you definitely want to try to minimize,